Iceland was such a dream trip. A snow-capped mountain behind you and one in front of you. So we kind of like look at the swell and be like, okay, there's some pockets here. If you know the right combination of tide, wind, and swell, you can definitely find some good tubes. There's a bit of like an element of adventure and uncertainty. In my brain, when I catch a wave, I actually talk myself through waves. A crucial thing that you can implement in your surfing. I think a lot of people stand up on a wave and they're like, okay, I'm on this wave, here I go. Let's go down the line, go, 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 oh, it's over. And you don't utilize it to, its full potential.
Welcome to the Basis Surf Podcast. We got Hunter Jones, very psyched because, he has an incredible, interesting story, pro surfer, creative, but he's done all sorts of crazy stuff, surfing Iceland, looked like, hunting a lot of tubes in the South Bay as well, trained with Laird Hamilton. I think you're like surfing with great whites, all sorts of weird stuff that I want to get into. But thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, dude, honored. I appreciate it. I watch your content all the time and I'm a fan, so stoked to be here.
Hell yeah. Well, why don't we just start from the beginning? How did you get into surfing? Where are you from? And how did it all start for you?
Yeah, well, I'm born and raised in the South Bay of Los Angeles. Home break is El Porto, which is a super crowded, pretty average beach break. And I started surfing when I was about 10 years old. And just got bit by the bug and never stopped. And it came from like a skateboarding kind of action sports background, I guess. I just loved skating, at least at first, and did that for a while, and then always loved the beach, loved the ocean, and my best friend started surfing, so I had to follow his lead, obviously, and I got into it and never stopped.
Nice. El Porto. I mean, I spent a little bit of time in LA, and that wave is, when it's small, it's so awful, but I also scored it, and it was like one of the most fun waves I've ever surfed as well. So it's this weird dichotomy of both at the same time. And you know what? It's not the same thing at all, but it kind of also reminds me of Rockaway, because Rockaway is most of the time complete crap. And then when it turns on, it's incredible.
Very similar. I'd say I'd love to make my way to New York. I've never been, but I would assume we have pretty average waves in a way. Like we've had a really good winter. It's come to a close now, obviously, but we had some weird sand the season before and it finally flipped and really provided. So if you know where to look, you can find tubes and really fun sandbars. So I really like to stick around home in the winter season for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I remember seeing a clip that you posted. It looked like Puerto Escondido, basically. But it said this was like Manhattan Beach. I was like, what? Wait, what? Really? Like, does it really get that good sometimes there? That's insane.
Yeah, we have some pretty good waves. I mean, you're reliant on sandbars and tide and wind and certain swells for certain spots, but it really lights up in the winter and we can get super barreled. Obviously there's a ton of closeouts. That's kind of what we deal with. But if the right combination of tide, wind, and swell, you can definitely find some good tubes. And I love, being here and searching around all the spots. And it's what I grew up doing. So it's like very natural and I feel really comfortable here. And I think every surfer has that kind of story at their home break,
Yeah. So dive in a little bit deeper into what it was like growing up surfing, Porto when you're a little kid. I mean, what is that vibe? Because you're pretty close to LA, the city. I mean, you're in LA, but you're on the beach. So it's city, but then you also have, a sweet wave when it turns on, and then you have exposure to the north, to the south. Like what is that like growing up in that kind of ecosystem?
Yeah, growing up in the South Bay was rad. I mean, my premier spot was El Porto. That's probably the main spot. It's the spot that has the biggest parking lot. It's closest to LAX. So everyone kind of just jumps off the freeway and surfs there. So it's a pretty crowded wave. You have a mix of a bunch of different types of surfers. I grew up riding a longboard actually and never really wanted to jump on a shortboard. I was like, I'm going to be a longboarder.
Really?
And it's super funny. I just was super comfortable and loved catching waves easily. And then, I've always been really competitive and, saw all my friends ripping. So I got on the shortboard and I just got really comfortable surfing beach breaks. I consider myself a good beach break surfer, although now I love, point breaks and reefs and all that. But we frequently do trips up to Malibu or, trips down to Trestles. And that's when I started experimenting riding different waves. And I think it's good, obviously, to test yourself in different conditions and be a well-rounded surfer. So you can definitely get a fine mix of different style waves here in California, and yeah, bounce back and forth up and down the coast for sure.
So that's fascinating, actually, that you kind of considered yourself a longboarder because you rip on a shortboard. Like, do you think what at what age did that transition happen? And do you think riding a longboard really helped your, you know, did it teach you things? Did it give you, did it help you in any way before you transitioned to going to a shortboard or what?
Yeah, for sure. I rode a longboard probably pretty heavily for 2 years, I'd say. Got super comfortable on it. And I think that's really important as you're getting into surfing. I see a lot of people ride their soft top and jump down to a really short board really fast. And I think for me, I wanted to master that board. And once I felt really comfortable on it and that I was ready to progress, I slowly downsized. And I think I landed my first air when I was 13. So I transitioned pretty quick. And but yeah, I loved catching waves easily and gliding. And I rarely jump on a longboard now, but I still have a passion for it. But yeah, I think it definitely helped get me more comfortable riding a board because I was so comfortable on this bigger board and felt like I understood the waves really well. So,
Hmm.
having a bigger board allows you to do that. And yeah, it was a cool season for sure.
Oh, cool. Wow. So you're doing airs at 13. So you're naturally probably just like gifted then, it sounds like.
No, I mean, it was a little small straight air, nothing to brag about, but I clearly remember it, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny how those things stick in your brain.
Nice. So what was next? I mean, you're 13 years old. You're obviously in love with surfing. You're going for airs. Like, did you start competing or were you just like cruising? Like, what was your vibe?
Yeah, growing up, I always had a dream of being a pro surfer or, calling surfing my job. And that was really the goal, I guess. And I didn't have the, you know, normal path of becoming a pro surfer. I wasn't really a competitive surfer. I didn't come from a surfing background. I'm the only, member in my family that surfs, and I had friends that did it. So I wasn't really pushed to be in competitions. I really was just surfing because I loved it. And I did a couple local board riders comps, but it wasn't really my thing. And really just wanted to get as good at surfing as I could. So picked up a couple local sponsors and went into the professional world. And then later on in my life, I guess I transitioned to going pro and riding for some rad brands and being able to call surfing my job. So, and filmmaking. So it's a rad journey I've been on, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Wow, it sounds fascinating. So, how did you go from, just being a recreational surf? Well, it sounds like you had sponsors, but how did you make surfing like your full-time job? Like, how did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah. So I guess the journey is I worked as a lifeguard at a pool and I was able to still surf. And then did the college thing. I got my associate's degree and was going to go to film school after that. And then got offered a job at the World Surf League as a social media coordinator. So I was running WSL Social, traveling all over the world, meeting all the guys, the pros, the brands, and kind of learning how to run a company and promote events and support events. And I did that for 2 years. And it was really the dream job. I grew up really wanting to, I've been fascinated with video editing and filmmaking and storytelling and was able to do that through my passion of surfing, so I was creating content, editing their global commercials and stuff, and learned so much about social media and how to run a brand. And then, yeah, I guess I questioned myself. I was like, I have this passion for surfing. I know I can surf, and how can I make this, my job? And ended up taking a leap of faith and quit my job at the WSL to pursue this, path or this goal of becoming a pro surfer. And ended up doing some freelance gigs and working with some brands and doing modeling stuff to like fill the gaps. And then ended up landing a sponsorship with Body Glove. That kind of catapulted me into this pro surfing world and have since locked on other sponsors. And yeah, I guess it's just a testament to believing in yourself, taking a risk, and knowing, having self-belief in yourself and knowing that you can do anything you put your mind to. And that's what I've, stayed true to my whole life. So I'm just fortunate to be in this position, man.
That's epic. And now you're going on surf trips to Iceland and, Oaxaca and all this stuff. You're living the dream. Man, that sounds sick.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do.
Hey everyone, my name is Van, and I'm an everyday surfer that's just obsessed with improving. And I wanted to take everything that I've learned, everything that I've struggled with, all the mistakes that I've learned along the way, and share it with you to help you become the best surfer that you can be. And I'm super lucky on this podcast. I get to interview the world's top pros, shapers, coaches, and take you along on my journey as I try to learn, uncover all the gold so you can apply to your own surfing. So hopefully you're going to get some value out of this. And the best way you can support me is just simply by sharing this podcast with whoever else you think may benefit from it. I also have been working really hard for a long time on something that I think is going to help a ton of people. I know that it was a game changer for myself as well. More to come on that over the next coming months. I'm super excited. Thank you for all the support. And for those of you just joining for the first time, welcome to the Basis community. Super stoked to have you. Wait, so when you were working with the WSL, did you get to go on tour events, or were you more kind of like locally based and you're managing stuff, or what was that like?
Yeah, so there was 3 of us on the social team at the time, and we had all take turns traveling to events. So the ones that I had the pleasure of visiting was J-Bay. I did the Europe leg, which was Portugal and France. And then, all the events here. It was cool. I did the first Surf Ranch comp ever. I think it was called the Future Classic, which was really special. And then, all those Surf Ranch events and, Huntington stuff. But to travel around the world and to be there with, the tour surfers and watch their level of surfing really, I think, pushed me. And it was cool to just be friends with them and kind of like pick their brains. And, we were kind of the same age, or at least me and a lot of the younger crop of surfers at the time. So it's just rad. And I got to just have a hands-on experience of, being with them and then, running social and understanding what sponsors want to provide in that sense. So it was super fun.
Well, what was it like paddling out at J-Bay for the first time? Like coming from LA, and you're like thinking about sharks and you're just like probably pumping, and then there's like probably the entire CT lineup in the water. You're like, how am I going to get any waves? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. J-Bay was so special, man. It was probably some of the best waves I've ever surfed. I was there the year that Toledo won. He did the 2 full rotation double alley-oops.
Yeah.
Kelly broke his foot that year.
Yeah.
And there was that boat riding the wave. It was just like a hectic year to be there, and it was firing. So I actually proper scored J-Bay. It felt like a crazier version of Malibu on steroids. And the wave is extremely fast. So that was one thing that was like something to get used to. It really exposes your surfing. You can't really make any mistakes. Otherwise the wave's going to pass you up. So I got some barrels. I did some turns and just soaked it all in, man. It was crazy.
Wow. Was that like a moment where you're like pinching yourself? Like, is this reality right now? Am I like in J-Bay, like surfing these perfect waves? That must have been so amazing. Wow. And what
really was?
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what was it, because I interviewed Dylan Lightfoot, and he has this crazy footage where it's like a shot from behind. And it's so funny because I look at that and the wave just looks so easy to surf. But I've watched the event, and it does look like a super fast wave. So it does look like a challenging wave. So like, what kind of adjustments did you have to make to your surfing to kind of master it? Did you just have to, obviously speed is a key, but like what were some of the things that you had to adjust in your surfing?
Yeah, I think approaching J-Bay at the time for me, I'd ridden a bunch of point breaks, but I hadn't ridden something to the caliber of that wave. It's such a good wave, but it's rifling down the beach or down the point. So I think I was just focusing on picking my maneuvers as wisely as I could and doing a lot of speed transitions. I think it's so much different than surfing, a beach break like El Porto. two different worlds, you know? So I think being wise in your maneuver selection and utilizing the wave to propel you down the line and then slow down and speed up depending on what section's offering you. So those are some things I focused on. And yeah, it was really just a learning experience. And I am eager to go back and surf J-Bay again for sure.
Yeah. But it's interesting if you come from surfing beach breaks, like I kind of imagine like you going to surf a point is going to feel a lot more chill, right? But I guess J-Bay is a specifically hard, point. But like, the unpredictable nature of beach breaks would make it. But I guess if it's just going so fast, you're just like trying to chase it and just trying to manage the speed the whole time, huh? That makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. I think the cool thing about surfing point breaks that I found is your flow is so much different than you would be on like a beach break, right? Like the way you're connecting the dots is a completely different approach. And that's something I have been addicted to trying to progress my surfing in, and surfing more point breaks, because you have to connect the dots in such a different manner, and your flow, you can kind of speed up and slow down on a beach break, and you can mess up and maybe recover a lot easier. So I liked the challenge of standing up on a wave and trying to, be on rail the whole time and pick the parts of the wave and make it really feel like it's one line that I'm drawing from top to bottom. And that's the challenge I try to create when I'm surfing beach breaks too, but the approaches are completely different from beach break to point break. So that's a cool thing about our sport. You can just be so versatile and push yourself and put yourself in different ways to progress.
Yeah, I really like that way of thinking about flow as well. Just like one single line connecting everything. That's a really beautiful way of thinking about it. Huh. So, we're talking a little bit about surfing points. What are your recommendations for surfing unpredictable beach breaks?
My recommendations for surfing unpredictable beach breaks is to stay busy. I guess I like to get started. I don't like to like wait around too much unless it's like firing barrels. I will be a bit more selective because I want to get the best wave. But when I'm surfing just a rippable day, I like to paddle out and just get started and catch a lot of waves and feel the momentum of what the swell's doing and create a bit of a rhythm. And then, if you want to wait for a couple sets, wait for some sets. And yeah, I think outside of that, with my surfing, I always try to put myself on the best waves if I can. And I won't go for anything that's like not going to allow me to do the surfing that I want to do. But yeah, approach the session. I go out and just try and get warmed up, and then I'll kind of turn on and try and lean into some turns or do an error or something like that.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. And it sounds like you're more the guy that you'll go out, you'll get busy, but then eventually you'll kind of just more sit out the back and wait for a good one, as opposed to sitting on the inside and just going for a million waves. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard when you're dealing with a lot of crowds too. You can be picky, but yeah, just to get the momentum started, I like to get a couple waves under my belt, get the feet in the wax and feel the board. I'm always trying different stuff. So it's nice to not feel like, okay, I'm going on the best wave of the day on my first wave. I've waited 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and then blow it. It kind of mentally doesn't set you up too well. So
Right.
I think, surfing's such a mental game too. And if I can just stand up on a wave, do some turns, finish it off, 3 to the beach or whatever, and then go out and build on my session, I think that sets you up a bit better. So those are some things I try to do when I go out and surf.
Cool. And what about boards? Are your beach break boards different from your point boards, or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think, well, I've been riding a ton of shortboards, but as of late, I've gotten really turned on to riding twin fins. I credit that a lot to Matt Pagan. He's a former local pro. He's the guy that I looked up to when I was surfing here in the South, or being from the South Bay. And we had similar sponsors, and it's really cool. He's turned into a full shaper and still rips incredibly hard. And I gained a lot of inspiration from him. And yeah, he turned me on to riding twin fins, and that's like completely opened my mind to a new side of my surfing. And also I feel like it's complemented when I ride my shortboards. The lines you draw are a bit different, and you're so focused on being rail to rail and fin to fin when you're engaging it. Whereas I feel like when you're on a thruster, you can kind of do whatever and not stress too much, but you have to pinpoint your surfing a bit more or have a different sense of flow on a twin. So those two things have, I think, really helped my surfing. And yeah, I really try to pick a board that's going to allow me to have the most fun given what waves I have in front of me. So, if it's not like crazy rippable and not too steep, I'll grab my twin fin and rip around. And if the waves are good, I'll grab my thruster and then try and rip. But I've really liked riding my twin fin at point breaks. It's kind of addicting.
Nice. That's epic.
Have you been riding anything interesting?
I mostly ride, well, actually the flat earth, the Aquila flat earth, I've kind of gotten obsessed with lately. I don't ride as a pure twin, but a twin plus trailer. My buddy is a shaper and he shaped me this like ASIM twin, or I grabbed it from his rack and it was a trip getting used to, like, but it goes so freaking fast. I was just like blown away. And then I just remember just setting the rail in the right curve of the wave, and it just like, just so much speed and just like whipped into this tight wrap. And I was like blown away. But then the next time I tried to do a turn, it was just like, just total fumbled it. So it just required like such an adjustment, that I feel like I had to really commit to being like, all right, I'm going to figure this board out. But I imagine once you do, then you unlock all that speed and then you have the maneuverability as well if you can get it under control, and it'd just be amazing. So it does sound
completely
kind of like what you're saying, right? You wouldn't ride it when it's like super steep or anything like that. A point is kind of perfect for it, right? So
totally. Yeah. And yeah, you have an understanding of what you can do on two fins, and then you can translate that to what you learned and apply it to your thruster surfing. And it's cool. It opens so many more doors. And I think having fun is what surfing's all about. So whatever you're riding and having fun on, you should go for it.
For sure. Well, I bet riding, getting tubed at Kelly's Ranch was pretty fun. Tell us about that.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I had an employee day at the surf ranch, and that was the only time I've gone, and I only got 2 waves.
That's like $17,000, isn't it? Or something obscene like that?
Something psycho. Yeah. I don't know what it is exactly, but I know each wave is super expensive. And I went my right, I completely blew it. I stood up and did a turn, and then the thing barreled right in front of me. This is when the wave had 2 barrels. I think now it's a little different, or they've altered it. I think you can choose, but at the time it was like the 2-barrel wave, and blew my right and never had another shot at it. And then got a left and surfed it pretty well, got barreled, and then did a turn and it ran by me. So I am so eager to go back and try. And but I've surfed some other wave pools, Waco. I surfed the Palm Springs pool when it was a test wave. And trying to get back there too, but we'll see.
Yeah, it was funny. My ex made me watch Ultimate Surfer or whatever. And like you watch the comp at the wave pool, at Kelly's wave pool, and it kind of can get a little monotonous, even though it's a perfect wave or whatever, right? But you're like, oh, that looks easy. Like anybody could surf that thing. And then you watch Ultimate Surfer, and all those guys are really good surfers and girls, and they're just like blowing it. They're like so stressed out, like the first time they're trying it. So I can just imagine there's just a lot of pressure when that first wave comes at you, and you're just like...
Yeah, no, for sure. There's such a different level of pressure surfing in wave pools. I was actually out there for filming that show. I was an alternate and didn't end up making the cut. I almost made it on.
Oh man.
And it's okay though. But surfing wave pools is it's rad because you can progress a lot faster, I think. Yeah. You have that same canvas to try and to practice on, and that's something that surfers we don't have. We don't have like a skate park. You're dealing with Mother Nature, and sometimes we don't have waves for weeks. And having wave pools and using those to your advantage to go and train has opened up a lot too. And I think that's where a lot of progression is coming for a lot of future generations. I think pools have opened up a whole new world.
Yeah, for sure. I interviewed Matt Miola, and he was like, if you want to learn how to do airs, just go to BSR. Basically, that's what you got to do. Yeah, I've surfed there, and it is an insanely fun wave for sure. But that one in Palm Springs, there was that one edit that with Chippa and Taro, and I watched it. It was like it didn't make it into the film. It was just like, you know, a loose edit. But like, dude, that was the sickest, one of the sickest edit like little clips I've seen in a long time. It looks so fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the barrel looks mental. It's like totally heavy. And I heard you could like get held down pretty good too. So it's you know, good for those adrenaline junkies for sure.
Yeah. All right. So you're on, you know, you're working for the WSL. You're traveling around, you're having a lot of fun, but then you decide, all right, I want to branch out on my own. I want to do my own thing, which sounds kind of scary probably for you a little bit, right? That must have been a little hair raising to bet on yourself in this way, but I'm sure you felt like I need to make this bet on yourself, right? Like on myself. And so what were those initial days like? Was that kind of hectic and stressful, or were you kind of like, you're just like, you know, I got this. This is all going to work out. What was that like?
It was totally stressful. I mean, essentially, I was leaving my dream job. I loved what I did there, and I was, you know, able to grow and learn. And yeah, leaving was super scary, and it was taking, you know, a risk. But you know, I think I knew that I could make it happen, or I had the self belief. And you know, one thing in addition to that was, you know, it's super hard to land sponsors, and everyone is such a good surfer. You know, there's so many kids out there that are like asking me, how do you go pro, or how do you get sponsors, or how do you get paid to surf? And I think for me, I knew that outside of just surfing, I had the element of filmmaking and editing and storytelling and, you know, uniqueness to me that I thought would be, you know, helpful to any brand or any sponsor. So I leaned into that a lot. And I think leaning into what makes you unique is a huge thing that I tell everyone if you're trying to make yourself a pro surfer. Like, what makes you different than everyone else? What can you bring to the table? How can you add value? And I knew that for me, I could plan a surf trip, I could get the filmers together, I could get people together, and I could produce a really cool story that is well put together and you know, like engages an audience. And you know, I learned how to do that through my job at the WSL, how to get people to watch an event. And I was like, okay, if I have these tools and I can surf and I can make edits, like why wouldn't anyone want to have me on the team? So I trusted myself and took the risk, and it worked out. And yeah, I'm so fortunate to be in this position, man. It's really a blessing, and I'm living the dream.
So this sounds like a better dream than traveling around and doing content for the WSL, because you just get to plan surf trips with your buddies. I mean, that sounds pretty epic to me.
Yeah, it's cool. It's rad too. They've helped me a bunch. I did a YouTube show called Detour Surf Towns with them that I was able to edit and produce. I was doing some newscasting related work for them at the time, or years back after I quit. So, you know, the relationship's still really good. And yeah, I'm just trying to inspire people and you know, tell people that you can do anything you put your mind to, and it doesn't matter where you come from or how you get from point A to point B, you can make it happen. And another really exciting thing I'm working on right now is I started or rebirth this page called One for LA that Matt Pagan had initially started back in the day. It was his production company that he was making all his surf edits through. And, you know, we draw a lot of inspiration from what Chloe and Dino's done with the 2% crew, what Dane Reynolds has done with Chapter 11. And we basically have created this account as a hub to show the talent that we have here in the South Bay, and you know, everywhere from Palos Verdes up through, I guess, Zuma area. So this whole coastline, and it's been really rad. We've seen a lot of people do posts with us, and it's just cool to like shine light on the talent we have here. And I just want to like create opportunities for people and make edits for the Groms, and you know, give them something that maybe I didn't have. You know, like if I could just give them some tips or make them an edit or give them a platform, it's been really rewarding. So we're slowly building it, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I love that psych, just like giving back to the community and helping bringing everybody up together. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So so tell us about like, you know, right, so you're planning these trips, but like how did you end up going to Iceland? Like that just sounds like the most insane trip. Like how do you even score that? Like I would imagine it must be so fickle up there. It's the Atlantic Ocean and then it's all the way up there. Like what was that like?
Yeah. Iceland was such a dream trip, man. My buddy Dan Anderson had been to Iceland, I think 3 times before our trip, and we had always talked about going. He's like, "Hey, I think I'm going to go in October. Do you want to make it happen?" I was like, "Yeah, let's try." And so we looked at some flights, and Daniel Gorstieta, he was the photographer on the trip. He ended up reaching out to a van company out there. He's like, "Hey, I'll shoot you some photos if you want to give us a van, and we're just going to rip around." And it ended up all working out. So we put the pieces together and booked the tickets and got a crew together, and yeah, spent 10 days driving around Iceland, sleeping in the van, tracking swell. And it was the most unique surf trip I've ever been on, the most rewarding trip I've probably ever done. And yeah, just, I've never done a proper cold water trip before. So to be in a 5'4" with gloves and boots and freezing water with, icebergs floating around and no one, and, snow-capped mountains, it was like, this is the dream, like, I can't believe it actually happened. And I look back at the photos like, that was such a special time in my life, and I want to go back.
Wow. What was trippier for you? Ending up in Iceland or surfing J-Bay for the first time?
I think surfing Iceland was probably trippier. I mean, yeah, there's just so much driving. There's you could find waves with no one out, and proper good waves. We surfed a Point Break for like 3 days straight, and it was just us. And you're in this, oh gosh, what's it called? Look, completely forgetting. But yeah, you're in this little bay essentially, and you got a snow-capped mountain behind you and one in front of you, and the swell would be pumping for a second, and the tide would change, and it completely shut down. And we were really trying to track swell and wind, and you didn't know where you were going to surf from one day to the next. We would kind of like look at the swell and be like, okay, there's some pockets here. We'll look at the Windy app and track the swell and look at this little nook and pull up and see if it was good. And if not, you jump back in the car and drive 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours plus, and
wow.
It was a different kind of surf trip. It's like you could go to Nicaragua and you're going to get waves and take boats around and get, and score. But for us, there was a bit of like an element of, adventure and uncertainty. So that made it unique, and I think that's what being a surfer is all about, and that was just such a fun trip for sure. And I learned a lot and took away, a lot of gratitude from it.
Yeah, that adventure aspect is just like the best part of it. And it's kind of that surfing is already kind of like this a little bit of a gamble. You never know exactly what you're going to get. But when you combine that with like all the buildup of like, all right, we're going to plan this trip. It's going to cost all this money. We got to fly all this way. We got to drive all this way. Like, is everything going to line up and then it pays off? It's just like the best thing in the world. I mean, I remember, so I'm also a climber. My brother and I, we were going to go to Seattle to actually do this ice climb in the mountain.
Wow.
But then we were looking at the forecast, and basically there was going to be like a foot of snow dumping. And then we realized, oh, there's a big storm. And then we realized, oh, there's going to be swell. And so just saw this big purple blog off in Alaska. And we're like, well, I've never tried surfing around here, but let's screw it. Let's like not bring our climbing gear. We're just going to bring our surf gear. And literally just looking at a map and just being like, I think this is going to be protected. I think this is going to work with the wind. And you're just like driving around, like there's like bullet holes in the stop signs, and you just go down a random corner, and we just like voodoo doll hanging there from a tree, like trespassers beware. And then I get down, and it's just like perfect pumping waves, just like the craziest like gray blue water. You keep on thinking an orca whale is just going to pop out at any moment, and there's like pine trees around. It was like finding gold at the end of a leprechaun's like rainbow or something. That's what it feels like, It's trippy.
Totally. It's such an addicting feeling too, like that's so rad that you experience that. And it's cool because there's still, waves out there with no one out. We, typically surf with so many people in the water, but if you're willing to, take a gnarly flight and get in some cold climate, and you can find waves to yourself, and then, there's warm water, empty waves too. But yeah, it's rad.
How did you adjust to wearing a 5'4" and being in cold water like that? I mean, LA gets cold, but it's not like that cold,
Totally. Yeah. It's nothing like New York, but, it was, yeah, having that much rubber is something to get adjusted to. You know, you don't have that same flexibility. You're dealing, you know, every duck dive was sketchy. You got a brain freeze. You know, you kind of have like a timer on you, like how long you're going to last and how long your body's going to be able to adapt to that cold water and be able to perform. So I loved the challenge. It was so unique, and yeah, I mean, you just do what you got to do. So I made it
Yeah.
happen. I think the water was like uh, 47 degrees, maybe 42 to 47. It
Yeah.
ranged as we drove around the island, but so crazy, so cool.
So was that ice immersion like good prep for training with Laird Hamilton? I bet you he probably made you do a bunch of ice baths and stuff like that. What was that like?
Yeah, oh, training with Laird was such a pleasure, man. He's such a cool guy. He's the same in person as he comes off online. Like he wants to help you. He's super knowledgeable. He knows so much about surfing, the ocean, and training and putting yourself in stressful environments. And you know, he's the king of that. You know, with big wave surfing and yeah, training with him was such a treat. We did a lot of breath work and a lot of stuff in his pool. That was like a lot of oxygen deprivation type training. So, you know, you'd have a 25-pound dumbbell in the deep end of the pool and you'd dive down with it strapped to your chest and jump up and get to the top with 2 or 3 strokes, take a breath and let it sink you down and do that like 10 times. And everything was like stress management kind of related and allowing yourself to be comfortable in uncomfortable scenarios. So I think it translates a lot to, you know, riding big waves, riding scary waves, and yeah, doing ice baths is kind of that same thing. I have one at home here. Try to jump in at least 2 to 3 times a week. And I think what it's really taught me is being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. You know, you could imagine yourself taking a wave on the head and or taking a scary wipeout and being underwater and just, you know, getting into that cold water and being like, it's only cold. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to get out of this thing after. If you could take that approach when you're underwater and in a scary situation and just calm yourself down, I think that helps a ton. And that's what I've taken from the training I did with him and how I approach surfing.
Was there any moment, you know, when you're training with Laird where you're like, oh man, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it to the top. You know, I'm like, this is my 10th rep. There's a 25-pound dumbbell strapped to me. I'm not going to make it. Or is there any point where you got stressed out like properly or what? Nah.
Nothing really too stressful, but like, you know, I went there with a couple pro volleyball athletes. I went with Matt Pagan as well. And just to be surrounded by other people doing it, you feel like, okay, we're all in this together. This is not easy, but it's prepping me for a scenario down the line that I might be in a sketchy spot. So yeah, I mean, anytime you're out of breath, it's scary, right? And
Yeah.
but yeah, I think just training your brain to be comfortable in those uncomfortable situations is what it's all about. And that's what I took from it, you know, and applying that in surfing and outside of surfing and just life, you know, like life's going to throw you a ton of curveballs. You might lose a job. You might, you know, be in a sticky situation, but if you stay true to yourself, it's all going to turn out good, you know, and have that control over yourself, control the controllable. So that's what
Yeah.
I live by.
So what's the deal? Are you training for Piahi or like what's is that the next surf trip or what's going on?
Gosh, man. Yeah, I've surfed some big waves, but I wouldn't say I'm ready for Piahi. I don't know. It would be rad for sure. You know, big wave surfing is such a different style of surfing. I wasn't really exposed to big waves as a kid, and uh, I've surfed some big waves, no doubt, but it's such a different sport, and have such a high level of respect for the guys that do that, and the guys that are so well versed across all different types of conditions. You know, like your Albie Lairs or your Mount Mayolas. Those guys are next level, and they can go from 60 foot to 2 foot and compete and be like really good at their sport. You know, so yeah, I don't think I'm training for Piahi right now, but I'll be ready for the next big day around here.
Nice, nice. Well, so did you use some of that brain control, like stress management? Because I saw there was like this clip you were surfing, and then like a great white was like breaching next to you. Like, what was going on in your head when that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some encounters with sharks, but that was just at Trestles. There was a little juvenile 6 foot great white that breached last summer when I was surfing. And I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I wasn't like freaked out or anything. They're always around us, I think more than we know. And I wasn't stressed about it. I've swam with some sharks in Hawaii, and I think they're really beautiful creatures. And you respect Mother Nature, and it'll give you respect back. And uh, surfing with sharks or being in the ocean, you're just that's part of the game. So I've never had anything too scary happen, but you
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I remember I was actually I was on Kauai, and I was surfing the same spot that where Bethany Hamilton got her arm bit off, and
Wow.
I paddled out, and there was another dude there, so I was like, all right, I'll catch some waves. And then the sun was setting, and he paddled in, and then I was sitting there, and I was like by myself, and then I remembered, this sunset is when they feed. And then I started like a little bit tripping out because I was thinking about Bethany Hamilton, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna catch a wave in.
Yeah, wise call, man.
Yeah.
That's sketchy. I know Kauai is gnarly. I've actually never been, but yeah, there's some sharks there for sure. I'm
Yeah.
planning a trip to the Galapagos Islands potentially, and supposedly there's some sharks around there. Certain spots you don't surf, but I think you can go and scuba dive with some like hammerheads or something. So I might mess around with that. We'll see.
Yeah, actually, I did that, and it was kind of trippy because I was scuba diving, and I went down with the leader or whatever, and then they told us before, if you see hammerheads, just chill, right? And then we see this one hammerhead float by, and he comes kind of close, and I could tell the leader was a little kind of like worried about it, and I was like, I thought it was supposed to be chill or whatever. We get to the top, and then she was like, yeah, that was actually kind of freaky because hammerheads are pack animals. And if you see them in a pack, they're all good. But if you see one by itself, that means it's an outcast. So it's like something's wrong with it. It has been kicked out of its group. So it is potentially dangerous. And I was like, well, I guess we're alive, so it's all good. But it was still a little bit,
Wow.
yeah, it was still a little bit trippy. But
So
damn.
interesting how, yeah, groups of animals travel together like that, or marine life and even on land. Such a trip. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That would be super scary.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I've kind of gotten through all the main questions that I wanted to get through. Any final? Okay. How about we end with what's your best tip for a intermediate, everyday surfer that's trying to improve?
I guess my best tip for someone who's trying to improve in their surfing and the intermediate level would be surf as much as you can. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to be a certain level. Just pay attention to the ocean. I think in myself, I've seen, if I pay attention to the ocean, get a good understanding of the waves, what it's doing, and have a plan going into your surf, I think that will allow you to progress a lot faster. So if you could, riding the waves is one thing, but understanding where to position yourself, the equipment you're riding, and what the tide's doing, how the waves are going to change, and how to match that change, I think is a crucial part of being a surfer. And I think that will help you progress a lot faster. And yeah, don't ride boards that are super high performance and gnarly. Like, get comfortable on a craft that allows you to do your best surfing at the time, and then downsize from there. But yeah, don't be afraid to fail. It's a lifelong journey, and surfing is going to teach you a lot, and it's given me so much. So I hope everyone out there that's learning learns everything that they want to learn, and enjoys Mother Nature, man.
Epic. Actually, I do have one more question for you. So I was interviewing this French surf coach. His name is Philippe, and Kanoa just spent 4 months training with him. He used to be the Hurley team manager, and he was talking about how important intentions are, because he was interviewing Philippe Toledo, and he's friends with Philippe, and he asked Philippe, like, what is going on in your brain when you catch that wave? Like, what is your intention? And Philippe's answer was, I just want to go as fast as possible. That's the only thing going on in his brain the whole time that he's surfing. What goes on in your brain? What goes on in your brain when you're surfing?
It's a great question. In my brain, when I catch a wave, I actually talk myself through my waves. I think that's a crucial thing that you could implement in your surfing. as soon as I stand up or as soon as I'm paddling for this wave, I'm trying to position myself as well as I can for the takeoff. And then as soon as I'm on my feet, I'm talking myself through my waves. So I'm like, okay, fade here. Here comes the section. Okay, here we go, and snap. Or here we go, turn. And, and then keep going down the line. So I try to actually talk myself through my waves, because I think it can be really difficult to do. I think a lot of people stand up on a wave and they're like, okay, I'm on this wave. Here I go. Let's go down the line. Go, go, go. Oh, it's over. And you don't utilize it to, its full potential. So I think for me, talking myself through the wave, slowing it down a little bit more, and taking that approach really helps me. And it's something that I do as much as I can. And now that I've figured things out, maybe don't do quite as often, but it's just become second nature to me. But I think that's a really good tip, to talk yourself through your waves and slow yourself down, because it can just be this huge level of excitement that you got the wave, right? But it's like, okay, slow down. Here's a section, turn. Okay, nice. Keep going, pump around that. Here's a floater. All right, let's finish it off. That's a snap, So walking yourself step by step, I think will help you a lot.
Oh, I love that. That's epic. All right. Well, and how should people find out about you? Where can they find you? Do you have any shout outs, anything that you're working on that people should be tuned in on?
Yeah, you can follow me, Hunter Jones, on Instagram, Hunter Jones with 2 S's. I'm on TikTok too, Hunter Jones _. And yeah, just so grateful to be a surfer. I think we live very special lives, and have a huge respect for Mother Nature and the ocean. And it's taught me so much. And yeah, just grateful to be in this position. And yeah, I think if you do it, you can do anything you put your mind to, and that's my story. And I want to inspire people to go out and do the same, whether that's in surfing or in their own endeavors. So yeah, man.
Awesome. But you're definitely an inspiration, and thanks for joining, man.
Thanks, Ben.